Hello and welcome back to Guitars and Music Tech. Last week we talked about what is music, and we stopped at what happens if you add a second melodic line. So now we have a second melodic line along this first one. We will start to have something very interesting. It's the birth of what we call intervals, and that is the start of what we call harmony. So at any moment in time when two pitches, which we call them notes, are sounding or played together, they will form some certain interactions between them, and that would lead us to the study of waves in physics and the laws governing them. Are you ready? I'm supposed to simplify to you what is music, and look at me taking you to a study of waves that is a very complicated subject in physics. I must apologize, but like many things in life, before you can see its simplicity and beauty, you need to understand how it works. And sometimes this will take you down the road of complexity for a little bit. To enjoy a gourmet meal, you really do not need to know the ingredients of how it's made. But if you want to be a chef yourself, you absolutely need to gain some knowledge about that. Music is the same thing. If you want to make music, not just listen to it, you will need to know a bit of how it works. So we have two sounds that are basically waves, going up and down at different speeds. So they will interact with each other, kind of like when you throw a pebble in a pond, you will see circular waves going from the source of impact to the water. Now throw a second one, and you will see an interesting interaction between those two waves. So if the top of two waves meet, they will add up and be higher. And if an up meets a down, they will nullify each other. And this is, of course, if the two waves have the same speed, like two similarly sized pebbles. They will produce the same speed that we call pitch. But if you throw a bigger rock, it will create a bigger wave. And that bigger wave will travel slower in the water. Exactly when you have a lower frequency, it will travel slower in the air. They will still interact together, and sometimes they will create secondary waves formed by the combinations. The same thing exactly happens with two pitches or two musical notes being played together. So we have an interaction that will be producing some pitches at a lower volume. Don't forget that actually a single sound that is produced in nature is seldom a single wave. It's actually a combination of many waves already interacting together to form that sound. And that is what we call the timbre of the sound. So the same pitch or note produced by a flute, for example, will sound different than anything else like your guitar or a piano or your voice. You can sing the same note, but you could definitely say that is a flute. And this is what allows us to really differentiate between different voices. Instruments and people, because of the special combination of different waves and harmonics structure that is each of us produce when we talk or when we sing, you can hear a huge difference, and you have kind of a signature for your voice, or a signature also sound for different guitars. That's why we have so many guitars that you can buy, because each one of them has a special sound. When I was younger and playing with my electric guitar and playing distortion, sometimes I would play one note, one string all by itself, and it sounds not in tune with itself, only by itself, and it sounds weird. There's something wrong. The reason was because of the distortion pedal, or the overdriven amp, will amplify your guitar string sound and distort it. And those harmonics included in the signature of that sound are also amplified, and they tend to clash with each other on an older string because, when you play, you bend in certain parts of the string not equally, and you will lose some material because of the frets rubbing on the string itself, so it'll become thinner in some part. So it forms dents here, and also some sweat accumulates in different parts of the string. So the speed of the string vibrating is not even as it was brand new. And that will create small little harmonics that are not in harmony with the original fundamental note of the string. And because you're amplifying them, they are clashing with the fundamental, and they're causing some beating when two notes are very close to each other, and it sounds detuned. And this also explains some people's voices are more pleasing than others due to the vocal cords. Maybe just the one voice you in the morning or at night or in the middle of the day or after drinking some kind of drink, your voice changes. And because the vocal cords also, like a musical instrument, they vibrate and they have their own signature. A person can have a detuned voice just singing by himself, because there he's not really having one note coming out of. There's many overtones clashing together and forming his voice, his signature. And also that explains why some musical instruments are more pleasing, and this is why also vintage instruments sounds better and costs so much money. Simply because due to the fact of them being played for so long, vibrations will reorganize inside the wood, the structure, the molecular structure of the wood, and the metal will blend a little bit with the wood, like when you put a drop of ink in a cup of water. You can see that the whole water will be, let's say the ink is blue, the whole water will be blue, and the drop of ink will disappear. It's infused. The drop of ink, which is dense color, will infuse with the water. Actually, everything in life infused together. That's why I don't put gold next to silver, because they will imprint on each other due to the fact. Vintage instrument, same thing. The wood and the glue and the metal and everything is infused together, and due to the fact that you're vibrating this instrument day after day for hours and hours for 30 years, let's say, you end up reorganizing everything according to those vibrations. And this is why we have a vintage instrument that has a unique and very, very pleasant sound that you could not do with a brand new instrument. Even if you get the same material, it won't sound the same because the harmonic structure is not the same. The older instrument is more in harmony with itself, and it sounds so pleasing and unique. So this leads us to discuss harmony. Now we said two single voices or pitches or notes are played together forms an interval. Sometimes the interval are in sequence, but most of the time the intervals are together. The two sounds are sounding together, and that's going to create harmony. We're going to discuss what is harmony in music part 3, but I just want to tell you that once you add a third note or pitch, we get chords. And this is in music, is harmony. So we went from a single line, single melody line, and then we added a second one, a second voice. It becomes intervals, 2 notes, and then we add 3 notes, 3 things going on together, and suddenly we have harmony, which is kind of a little bit implied when you play 2 notes because of the fact of having different pitches and all that, but having a third strong fundamental note along the first 2 really creates what we call in music chords. And that will be our next episode. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time with the talk about what is music and a little bit about harmony. Thank you and goodbye.